So we've got a very short period of time, and please don't drift off if you want to get a chance for the draw, apart from the fact that we're going to have drinks soon. But I think particularly with Simon here is a great opportunity to ask some questions of him, and we've got 5 minutes for Q&A? 7.5? So, yeah.
Good afternoon, Bridget McIntosh. My question is for you, Simon. Thank you very much. You mentioned the advanced energy agenda. During this summer study, we've had a lot of discussion about the distributed energy and the opportunities that come from it, and with reference to the Energy Lab and the opportunity for startups to come up with new and innovative business models to interact in the distributed energy market. There is an opportunity for jobs, but there are a few barriers. So I'm wondering, will that agenda address some of the regulatory barriers? And then the second question is, how do we manage the tension with coal and the existing jobs in the coal industry?
Well, I'll just go to coal first. So very few of the coal mining jobs nearly all of the coal in New South Wales is exported. Like, I think we export over 100 million and we only use 10 locally. It's kind of not a really big clash, I don't think. On the regulatory issues, I actually think one of the things that we would bring to the table would be a commitment to be a sort of case champion for rule changes that are necessary to open the door for specific innovations and new business models. Because I think this is such a highly regulated industry compared to many others. We can't. I can't see, like, if you think about Uber and how it approached the taxi regulation scheme. I mean, it was a guerrilla and it just ignored the law, and it was able to do so. And to its credit, the New South Wales government, which is pro-competition, opened that door, and it's now a legal competitor. And there are some other firms going to set up in that space. Electricity sector is way more regulated than the taxi sector, for all of the reasons that you understand well in this room. So I actually think if there was a partnership with the lab that you've talked about, then one of the contributions we can make is to say, okay, well, have a batch process every 6 months or a year. Well, what have we got here that's really prospective? The only thing holding it back is the fact that the rules don't permit it. Shall we take a subset off to the relevant institutions, and we'll be the sponsor to get the door open in an experimental sense to try stuff. Yeah.
Do we have another question over here?
Hi, Sharon Denny. I actually wanted to pick up on both Mark Patterson and Simon's discussion. Simon, you made the point of bringing all the tribes together, but you didn't talk about the political tribes. And for Mark, as part of that, you talked about the importance, both this morning and again this afternoon, about the importance of not sitting back and waiting for something to happen. But the reality is the partisan politics that we are in today, that's exactly what we end up doing. So what I haven't heard over the last 3 days, and I'm actually really frustrated by it, is how are we going to deal with the partisan politics? Because talking to one side of government actually isn't resolving the issue. It makes it a point of either one supports it and the other one doesn't. At the moment we have a race to the bottom. What are we going to do in this space to get a race to the top?
I might kick off on this. I'm sure there's other comments. I think Western democracies have a real problem. We have, and our leaders have really have a real deficit, it would seem, of coming up with or demonstrating imaginative, inspiring futures. So we spend a lot of time in any particular domain, and I can only think of the area I'm working in, where we spend at least 95% of our energy and time fighting over the incremental changes to the system that has been. And I see very few efforts to actually say, okay, we need to do that, that's important. We need to keep the 707 in flight, because we all want to get to Melbourne safely, for example. But at the same time, where is the process often to say, well, we know that the future that we have, the systems that we have, the institutions that we have, were actually designed for a different place. So there is a huge social narrative that we can develop that actually is inspiring and engaging, and that actually lifts human beings and citizens beyond and above the fights and the angst about only focusing on the present. And just final thought here, we find that there is an incredible thing that happens when you get a whole bunch of adversaries in a room, commercial adversaries, and you say, if you want to talk about 2016, please leave and go to another meeting. We're now going to spend the rest of the day in 2026. And we're going to focus on how we would actually architect the type of solutions that need to be developed for resilient outcomes, whether it's electricity systems, whether it's other areas of energy productivity. So I would simply say that, if you like, our elected leaders are actually looking for visionary, purposeful coalitions of the willing to actually help them craft, and in fact to craft, very compelling societal narratives that can actually transcend partisan politics.
I'm going to only take one more question, but I will make one comment about partisan politics, and I hope you did hear me say this in your frustration, that in the energy productivity space we actually have got all the major parties supporting step change improvement in energy productivity, and this is a narrative that does seem to be working, talking about how we can exploit our energy to get much better outcomes, and both economic outcomes and environmental outcomes simultaneously. And I think it's that simultaneous story that's got everyone under the tent. I'll take one more question because everyone's getting tired. I can see they're sort of looking weary, thinking about drinks. Anyone want one further question? No, I'll wrap it up. Now over to Steve to make, as the father of summer studies, to make some final comments before we wrap up.